This Level 8 Music Theory course has been generously sponsored by Musicians English, the Calgary-based music organization which helps connect Korean-speaking music teachers with the RCM's curriculum. For more information about this great program, check out the link in the description below. Today we're going to discuss the Level 8 interval chapter in the Level 8 RCM textbook. Now, we learned about intervals in Level 5, 6, and 7. But believe it or not, I was withholding an important piece of information from you. Those intervals in Level 5, Level 6, and Level 7 are actually called simple intervals. A simple interval is an interval that is an octave or less. Here in Level 8, we have to start working with what are called compound intervals. And a compound interval is an interval that is greater than an octave. For example, we learned in Level 5 that C to D is a second. What if I take this D and transpose it up an octave? This is no longer a second. This is a ninth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth. So you have seconds and ninths. What about C to E? That's a third. If I transpose this E up an octave, however, it becomes a tenth. Fourths become elevenths. Fifths become twelfths. Sixths become thirteenths. Sevenths become fourteenths. And an eighth becomes an octave. So in Level 8, you need to know how to deal with ninths, tenths, elevenths, twelfths, 13ths, 14ths, and 15ths. That might sound really intimidating, but I have good news for you. Each one of those compound intervals has a simple interval as its partner, which you've already learned. And you have to treat the compound interval the exact same way you would have treated its simple intervallic partner. What do I mean by that? I mean the quality stays the same. So look here. We know that C to E is a major third, because E is the third note of C major. We learned that in Level 5. E to C. Now we know the distance is a tenth, but this tenth operates in the exact same way as its simple form, the third. So you can actually think of thirds and tenths being the same thing, being the same interval. Here's a major third, here's a major tenth. Now, we know that there is no such thing as a perfect third. Therefore, there is also no such thing as a perfect tenth. Here's a major third. If you shrink it by 1, it becomes minor. Same thing for its compound partner. Here's a major tenth, which is kind of like a major third, and it shrinks, and it becomes a minor tenth. So these are doing the exact same thing. Even though audibly it's not the same interval, you can kind of think as though it is to complete your theory exam. Let's look at fourths. Fourths and elevenths are pretty much the same thing. C to F is a perfect fourth. I know there is no such thing as a minor fourth or a major fourth. So 11ths start perfect, and I also know that there are no such thing as major fourths, or as major 11ths, or as minor 11ths. They act the same way that fourths do. So fourths and 11ths are like the same thing. Let's do fifths and 12ths. C to G is a perfect fifth. Therefore, if this G got moved up here, it's also a perfect 12th. And I know there's no such thing as a minor fifth or a major fifth, so there's no such thing as a minor 12th or a major 12th either. Here's a perfect fifth and 12th. This is getting easier. Let's look at 6th and 13th. C to A is a major 6th. Therefore, if I put this A up here, that's a major 13th, because it acts like its 6th partner. Augmented, minor, and then diminished. Major 6th and major 13th, augmented, minor, and diminished. And of course, 7ths and 14ths operate as if they were the same. Major 7th and major 14th, augmented, minor, and diminished. So it's not too difficult, as long as you remember which intervals go together. Seconds and ninths act the same. Thirds and tenths act the same. Fourths and 11ths go together. Fifths and 12ths go together. 6th and 13ths go together. And 7ths and 14ths go together. And octaves and 15ths act the same way. The last thing we need to learn for this chapter is how to invert compound intervals. Now I need you to listen carefully to me for 1 second. Different theory teachers teach this lesson very differently. I'm teaching you the way the RCM's Level 8 textbook teaches you. And the way the Level 8 RCM textbook teaches you is that when we invert a compound interval, we invert it into its simple form. So we're going to take a gigantic compound interval, but when we invert it, it's going to be simple. What we have to do to invert a compound interval is take the top note, transpose it down 1 octave, and we're going to take the bottom note and transpose it up 1 octave. And we are going to be left with an interval that is much smaller than the one we originally inverted. Let's do that on the piano now. Let's take D to F. First I have to figure out what this is. I know that D to F down here is a minor third. Therefore, I know that D to F up here must be a minor 10th. Because thirds and tenths are the same thing and the quality is the same. Now to invert this interval, I'm going to take this F and put it an octave down, and I'm going to take this D and transpose it an octave up. Now what did I get? D is the 6th note of F major, so this is a major 6th. Now how did I go from a minor 10th to a major 6th? In level 7, we learned that when you flip a major, or when you flip a minor interval upside down, it becomes its opposite, which is major. So that's correct. And we know that a tenth is equal to a third. And we know that a third flipped upside down is a sixth. So this tenth, also being kind of like a third and being minor, flips to a major sixth. And that's all you need to know for level 8 intervals. Remember, there will still be double sharps and double flats you have to worry about, which we learned about level 6. If you don't know what those are, you can go look for that lesson in the level 6 category. Now let's go over to the whiteboard, and we will do this on paper, and we will see what it actually looks like so that you can visualize it and successfully complete your exam.